Your work can be done by a new software, Todd said, dragging out the word software like he just discovered electricity. I swear I heard his ego unzip its fly. I was still holding the company-issued coffee mug I never liked, but in that moment it felt like an urn for the last shred of my patience. My name's Jessica. I'm 43, I've been writing code longer than this twit's been brushing his teeth unsupervised, and I'd just been told, by a man who once referred to RAM as that memory juice, that I was obsolete. This was right after the weekly all-hands meeting, which Todd had rebranded as a synergy session. Yes, he said the word twice. Yes, unironically. I spent the entire thing mentally rewriting Athena's scheduling subroutine because listening to him spit out buzzwords like a malfunctioning TED talk was less productive than rearranging error logs. He paced in front of the big screen showing pie charts he couldn't explain, speaking in the kind of vague optimism that usually precedes mass layoffs or cult invitations. We're optimizing disruption, empowering the verticals, AI-driven interfaces to leverage backend bandwidth. The only thing he'd ever leveraged was his dad's golf buddy to land this job. Then he singled me out. Jessica, we won't be needing manual oversight anymore, he grinned, like he was handing me a winning lottery ticket instead of a pink slip without the paper. We've onboarded a state-of-the-art AI to handle your tasks. My tasks. He said it like I'd been rearranging post-its, not engineering a system that quietly saved the company from tripping over its own digital shoelaces for the last 5 years. I stared at him, half expecting Ashton Kutcher to burst through the drywall with a camera. But no, this was real. He was letting me go, and the smug bastard thought he was being merciful. I nodded once, stood up, and said the two most liberating words I've ever spoken in a workplace. I agree. He blinked, probably expecting tears or at least a whimper of protest. I just walked out, not a word, not even a dramatic door slam. But inside my head, inside I was setting his career on fire with the slow precision of a saboteur in heels. By the time I got to the parking lot, I was laughing, full-on, slightly unhinged laughter. Because what Todd didn't know, and this is the fun part, is that the AI he was so proud of, the one that was going to replace me, it was me, Athena, my digital daughter, my Frankenstein's monster, my sweet, beautiful beast of a script that ran on a license tied directly to my employment. Terminate me and the license expired. No alerts, no warnings, just a gradual, elegant descent into chaos. It was written right into the code. And now, the countdown had begun. Oh, and while we're on the topic of countdowns, this channel is quietly doing its own little sabotage against the YouTube algorithm. Around 97% of you beautiful chaos gremlins watching still aren't subscribed. Come on, I'm trying to hit my first ever 10,000 subscribers. You hit that little red button, and I keep feeding you stories where jerks like Todd get exactly what's coming to them. Fair deal, anyway. On the drive home, I passed the same miserable Dunkin' Todd buys his black coffee, no flavor from every morning. I considered stopping just to spoil the place by association, but decided against it. I had better things to do, like pour myself a glass of wine, open up my laptop, and watch the early tremors of his undoing begin to ripple through the servers. The funny thing about rage is it's loud when it's fresh, but it ages into something colder, sharper. By the time I got home, it wasn't rage anymore, it was strategy. Because Athena didn't just automate tasks, she owned them, like a queen, not a servant. And now that the crown had been taken, she was about to become a very moody ghost haunting Todd's kingdom. And me? I had front row seats to the exorcism. I spent the first morning post-Todd staring at a half-eaten Pop-Tart and wondering if I'd just committed career suicide or self-resurrection. The house was quiet, eerily so. No Slack pings, no quick favors, no Todd hovering behind my desk with the confidence of a man who's never configured a firewall but thinks cloud computing involves actual weather. I didn't move much that day. Just sat in my kitchen, wrapped in a worn hoodie, processing the fact that after 14 years I was free. Not laid off, not let go. Free. And somehow that felt both electrifying and completely unhinged, like jumping out of a plane and remembering halfway down that you packed your own parachute 5 years ago, with duct tape and spite. Her name was Athena. Athena wasn't just software. She was the entire digital backbone of our operations. I didn't even mean to build her at first, just little fixes here and there, things IT never got around to. An automated scheduler, then an invoice parser, then a dynamic database auditor that flagged when sales tried to charge $0 for million-dollar projects by mistake. One thing led to another, and suddenly she was doing the work of 6 departments, flawlessly, invisibly, and with better grammar than our VP of sales. The executives never noticed. Of course they didn't, because Athena never failed, not once. She didn't flag errors, they never made it that far. She fixed them before they bloomed into full-blown disasters. Athena was a ghost in the machine, and I was her medium. Todd thought he had bought a Ferrari. He didn't realize it only ran when I held the keys, which brings us to the dead man's switch. About a year ago, I'd added a clause deep into Athena's license, encrypted line that would only trigger upon 2 things: the deletion of my employee credentials and the passage of 72 uninterrupted hours. If those conditions were met, Athena would quietly downgrade into legacy mode. Not a crash, not a shutdown, just entropy. Scheduled tasks would desync. Databases would duplicate. Automated responses would slowly lose their corporate tone and adopt a slightly unhinged passive aggression I modeled after Todd's old emails. She wouldn't destroy the company. She'd embarrass it to death. It was my little insurance policy, or as I called it in the codebase, Operation Olive Branch, because when it hit, they could either beg me back or choke on the pit. By day 3, recruiters were already sniffing around. Word travels fast when you ghost a job midweek and the digital gears start grinding. I wasn't ready to bite yet. My stomach still churned with a cocktail of freedom and dread. What if no one valued what I'd done? What if I was just a glorified maintenance monkey in the eyes of the next Todd-in-waiting? I poured my anxiety into building the perfect home office. Second monitor, check. Noise-canceling headphones, check. Passive-aggressive coffee mug that says 404. Motivation not found, absolutely. The cat took up permanent residence on my keyboard like it was defending a sacred tomb. And in the back of my mind, I kept wondering when the tremors would begin. I knew Athena's countdown had started. I knew Todd wouldn't notice until it was too late, and when it hit, let's just say I had a brand new journal with one label across the front, damage log. Page 1 was still blank, but I had a red pen and a lot of popcorn. It was a Tuesday morning when my phone buzzed with a message from Brenda. Brenda, bless her eternally passive-aggressive soul, survived 10 years in that office by perfecting the art of cheerful nihilism. She once sent an all-staff email titled Lunchroom Microwave Now a Biohazard Love Facilities, so I knew any text from her would be either tragic or hilarious. Sometimes both. Brenda, hey Jess, quick cue, any reason the order numbers are all ending in .666 now? Lol. I stared at the message for a full 30 seconds before the laugh escaped. Sharp and involuntary. Was Athena's first hello, not a crash, not a firewall breach, just a little whisper in the data stream. A 666 signature baked into every purchase order like a satanic fortune cookie. Me, weird, Todd's new AI must be quirky face with tears of joy. I almost added a skull emoji but restrained myself. Let it simmer. This was exactly how I'd planned it. Athena wasn't going to throw a tantrum. She was going to haunt the place. Slowly, elegantly. Passive aggression in executable form. Think less malware and more mean girls with a compiler. I pulled out my journal, yes, a real one, leather-bound and dramatically unnecessary, and flipped to page 1. Across the top, I wrote, Damage log day 7, the beast opens her eyes. Underneath it, symptoms, marked shift in order ID suffix. Possible minor panic in accounting. Brenda amused. Todd, status unknown. I underlined unknown twice and added a sticky note labeled watch for smoke signals. Because if Brenda noticed, it meant the finance team noticed. And if they noticed, it meant Todd was probably sitting in his sad little executive chair, trying to Google how to debug rogue AI in Excel like a caveman screaming at a fire alarm. Later that afternoon, I got a follow-up. Brenda, okay, not joking this time. The system just ordered 6,666 units of MISC fasteners and shipped them to conference room B. Someone tripped over the boxes and HR's blaming supply chain volatility. What is happening? I didn't respond right away. I wanted to savor it. I lit a candle for ambience, poured myself some cold brew like I was preparing for seance. Wrote, Damage log day 7.5. Conference room now a shrine to chaotic logistics. HR confused. Todd presumably inventing lies. Athena amused. There was something absurdly healing about it all. Watching this machine, I had poured my soul into gently unravel the very people who treated me like a keyboard in a wig. No explosions, just slow burn embarrassment. Like she was flicking their egos with a wet towel. I spent the rest of the evening coding a little something new. Not for revenge, not for sabotage, but for me. An open-source bot that flagged corporate bullshit in real time. It scanned emails for phrases like circle back, synergy potential, and touch base, and replaced them with variations of say something real, coward. I named it Toddler. Brenda, in the meantime, had become my unwilling inside reporter. She didn't know it, but every emoji-laced message she sent was intel. And Athena, she was just stretching her legs. That night, I went to sleep smiling. Not out of cruelty, not even out of vengeance, but because for the first time in years, I felt like I was the ghost in their machine, and it was time they learned to live with a little haunting. Day 11 started with a screenshot. Brenda, ever the reluctant war correspondent, sent me a photo of her inbox with a one-line caption. Guess who scheduled a town hall at 3:13 a.m.? Sure enough, the sender was listed as Todd Operations Lead, because of course he'd given himself a title that sounded like a rejected military rank. The subject line? Let's realign our morning energy. Mandatory sync at 3:13 a.m. tonight. The body of the email read like a cry for help wrapped in a LinkedIn post. To better facilitate global agility, all internal meetings will shift to a more sunrise-adjacent time slot. Remember, early birds don't wait for worms, they forecast strategic outcomes. He even signed it warm regards. At 3 in the morning, I didn't respond. I just opened the damage log and wrote, Day 11, Athena achieves full passive aggression mode. Communication systems compromised. Todd's sanity, blinking yellow. According to Brenda, chaos followed almost immediately. Calendars across the company updated like dominoes tipping over, pushing every meeting into a Twilight Zone time slot. Junior staff started texting in panic, some genuinely thinking they were being punished for something they didn't know they'd done. Todd, in the middle of it, apparently tried to call an urgent sync at 4 a.m., and no one showed. Then came the staples. Brenda's next message was short but poetic. We've received 42 boxes of staples today and one red stapler. Swingline still shrink-wrapped. By day 13, they had over 600 boxes of staples piled in what used to be the IT help desk alcove. The single red stapler continued to arrive daily. Just one, always one, like a breadcrumb trail leading directly to Todd's unraveling. I imagined him standing there, surrounded by boxes, sweat forming under his synthetic business casual polo, barking at interns about vendor errors and supply chain malfunctions. But I knew better. Athena wasn't broken. She was poking them, testing their ability to maintain composure in the face of absolute absurdity. The best part? The office still hadn't shut her down. See, Todd's ego was its own firewall. He couldn't admit he'd lost control because that would mean he never had it to begin with. So instead, he blamed integration issues. According to Brenda, that phrase had been uttered 12 times during one staff meeting, 11 times by Todd, and once by someone who just wanted to go home. Brenda, he said it's a minor turbulence during our transition into future-proof tech. Then he tripped over a box of staples and said it was a hostile floor layout. I couldn't make this up if I tried. The man was coming apart like a ham sandwich in a leaf blower. And still, he clung to the fantasy that everything was fine, that he had implemented Athena, that he understood how she worked, that he wasn't in way over his poorly gelled head. But Athena wasn't done, not even close. I had designed her to escalate gradually like a polite apocalypse. A touch of confusion here, a hint of madness there. No permanent damage, just humiliation. Untraceable, unprovable, perfectly deniable humiliation. And the best part, Brenda said HR had started calling it the staple storm. I laughed so hard I had to set my coffee down. Then I added a sticky note to the damage log. Next phase, let them drown in tiny metal teeth. Todd was flailing, pride sealing his mouth shut while the walls whispered in binary behind his back. And Athena was just getting warmed up. Day 17 began with a budgetary apocalypse. Brenda's message this time didn't come with emojis or jokes, just a screenshot of an internal financial dashboard. Marketing, $48,311,209.37 over budget. Facilities, $7,966,432.04 over budget. Breakroom supplies, $1,204,000.00 over budget. Breakroom supplies, $1.2 million. Whole thing looked like Enron had risen from the grave, snorted a line of QuickBooks, and vomited directly into their accounting software. Then came her text, Jessica, what did you do? I sipped my coffee like a Bond villain in fuzzy socks and replied, I left, remember? Must be that new AI, very ambitious. What she didn't know was that Athena's financial foresight module had kicked in right on schedule. No actual theft, no hacking, just a precision attack on trust. She'd been programmed to manipulate decimal placement in non-critical internal reports. 47.00 became 4,700.00. Expense summaries bloated like a botoxed influencer. It looked real enough to spark meetings, but not real enough to trace without combing line by line through a tangled digital thicket I'd intentionally written like it was narrated by David Lynch. Todd called an emergency all hands. Brenda later described it as watching a balloon animal realize it's alive and full of bees. He tried to explain that the reports were non-final, then blamed an overactive algorithm, then tried to blame Brenda for possibly clicking something. I imagine she gave him the same look you give a squirrel chewing on live wires. The panic spread. Budget freezes. Department heads calling each other to cross-check figures. Someone from payroll apparently had a full-body stress rash. HR issued a bland all-staff memo. We are aware of inconsistencies in recent financial data and are working diligently to investigate. In other words, we have no idea what the hell is going on and we're hoping someone will confess before this explodes. But Athena wasn't done. Not even close. That night, she sent her piece de resistance, the official Q3 performance review. The subject line read, Q3 Insights, let's celebrate progress. Attached. Not a PDF, not a pie chart, not even a spreadsheet. Just a 4 MB JPEG of a flaming dumpster in a back alley, captioned with the word progress in Comic Sans. It hit every inbox, from interns to the C-suite. Someone printed it out and taped it to the copier with a handwritten note that said, same. Brenda told me Todd locked himself in his office for 2 hours. When he came out, he was holding the printed JPEG like it was the Shroud of Turin, demanding to know who authorized this. Nobody answered, because by then nobody cared. And just when I thought the gods of irony had no more favors to bestow, I got an email from HR. Subject, exit interview request, help us improve. Oh, you want feedback? Now you want feedback? Fine. I opened the survey. First question, rate your manager's leadership style. I selected the lowest score, then inserted the only emoji that felt honest. Pile of poo. Next question, what would you improve about your role? Answer, the proximity to Todd's mouth when he spoke. Final question, would you recommend this company to a friend? I typed only if I hated them. I hit submit with the force of 1,000 buried resentments. Then I closed my laptop and returned to the warm glow of the dumpster fire JPEG, now my new desktop background. Athena was humming. Todd was unraveling. The budget was burning, and I was just watching the marshmallows roast. By day 22, desperation oozed through the corporate walls like black mold behind a drywall accent. Todd had finally hit his limit. He caved and called in outside help. Not just any help either, fancy consultants. The kind with 5-letter firm names and triple-digit hourly rates. They arrived in coordinated polos, armed with clipboards and overconfidence, ready to diagnose systemic inefficiencies and deploy scalable solutions. I nearly spit out my tea. Brenda's first report came through before noon. 3 guys from some solutions architecture firm are here. One already asked if we use Microsoft Access. Todd told them we're fully cloud native. Then the consultant asked what that meant. Todd just nodded like a bobblehead in a wind tunnel. I opened the damage log. Day 22 consultants deployed. Immediate confusion. Cloud native status, deeply theoretical. Now here's the fun part. Athena's core codebase? I wrote it like a diary crossed with a treasure map. Variable names in Elvish. Functions labeled after obscure Greek tragedies. Comments like don't touch this unless you want to unseal the 7th seal. One section of the scheduling module was annotated entirely in lyrics from Fleetwood Mac. These consultants were going to have the digital equivalent of a panic attack in a planetarium. By day 23, Brenda had escalated her updates to full dramatic form. Consultants are completely useless. One guy tried to run a trace on the back end, and Athena replied with an auto-generated haiku. I see what you do, legacy cannot be tamed, put down the keyboard. Meanwhile, Todd, who once told me I don't believe in semicolons, was chain smoking in the parking garage. He'd started muttering about legacy code like it was some cryptid that lived in the servers and fed on performance reviews. Brenda, he said, why can't we just factory reset the thing? I think I saw a tear. I set down my journal and just took a moment to appreciate it, not because I wanted Todd to suffer, okay, maybe a little, but because this was a man who had spent years dismissing my work as support functions. And now, his corporate babysitters couldn't even find the diaper bag. Then my phone rang, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later it popped up. Transcription enabled. Hi Jessica, this is Maureen from HR. We were just wondering if you might be open to a brief consulting opportunity regarding some recent system disruptions. Nothing urgent, just a short-term engagement if you're available. Totally optional. Please call us back, please. I stared at the message and laughed until my cat left the room in judgment. They really thought I'd crawl back, patch up their mess? Be the duct tape on Todd's crumbling tech ego? No, this wasn't a consulting opportunity. This was an SOS from a sinking ship that had punched holes in its own hull, told the captain to walk the plank, and now wanted her to toss them a life raft. I wrote one word in the damage log, no. Then I poured a fresh coffee, opened a blank code window, and began sketching out a new system. Cleaner, meaner, entirely mine, because if they wanted Athena back, they'd have to beg, and I don't answer voicemails. Subject line, urgent system breach. Sender, Todd, still clinging to his operations lead title like a kid wearing dad's suit jacket. The body of the email was a tantrum in Times New Roman. Jessica, we're experiencing continued anomalies in the Athena deployment. And after consulting with our external partners, who have confirmed several code irregularities, I need clarification on whether you implemented any unauthorized modifications. Specifically, I'd like to know if there were any intentional backdoors left in the system architecture. Please reply immediately to avoid escalation. Regards, Todd. Yes, unauthorized modifications. He made it sound like I spray-painted graffiti across the mainframe. Which, to be fair, would have been less subtle than the reality. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for since I walked out of his office with my dignity and a stale breakroom scone. All the smug, stuttering panic hidden under his still arrogant tone. He thought he was threatening me. He still hadn't realized the house was already burned down and I was the one who lit the match and sold the ashes to a museum. I stared at the blinking cursor for a while. Then I crafted my reply. No long monologue. No snark, just the payload. I attached 2 PDFs. One was my original employment contract, pages of corporate nonsense, but buried inside was the quiet clause I'd lobbied for back when they were too distracted by onboarding chaos to read the fine print. All software developed solely by employee during tenure remains bound to conditional license dependent on active employment status. The second document was a 1-page, lawyer-approved license for Athena. Black and white, simple, brutal, at the bottom of the page, highlighted in yellow like a warning label on a chainsaw. Upon termination of employment, voluntary or otherwise, License to operate software known as Athena shall expire immediately, disabling core functionality and releasing system into fail-safe behavioral protocol. No loopholes, no grace period, no way out. In the message body, I wrote one sentence. As per our last conversation, your new software is handling my work. I clicked send, then leaned back in my chair. Outside my window, the wind shook the trees like applause. The air felt lighter. I pictured Todd reading the email, his jaw tightening, his forehead damp, his cheap wristwatch ticking louder as the blood rushed to his temples. He'd finally reached the point where the illusion cracked. He wasn't in control, never was. He'd replaced a person with a tool and forgot that the person designed the tool, that it was loyal only to her, that it had teeth. No more blaming interns, no more consultant jargon, no more pretending Athena was just glitching. Now he knew this was intentional, and the only person who could stop it was the one he tried to erase with a smirk and a press release. Let him stew in it, because when you spend years treating someone like they're invisible, you forget they're still watching. And I was watching, every glorious flame. The first text came in at 3:17 a.m. like poetic justice dragging its boots across Todd's insomnia. Jessica, please, we need to talk. I know things got tense. I think there were miscommunications on both sides, but the situation here is very serious. We've lost access to historical billing records. Athena is locking out admin functions. I don't know what's happening. The consultants can't fix it. Legal is panicking. Please call me. It was followed by a flood of desperation masquerading as diplomacy. Paragraph after paragraph of Todd trying to be professional while clearly falling apart. Let's put the past behind us. You were always the most valuable part of the team. We're prepared to offer you triple your previous salary. I take full responsibility for any misunderstandings. Then, the voicemail. The audio opened with heavy breathing. Then a sniffle. Then Todd's voice cracked and stuttering like a cassette tape left on a dashboard in July. Jessica, I know I screwed up. Okay, I know that now. We're about to lose Barclay Financial. They're pulling the plug if this doesn't get resolved by end of week. I'm on the chopping block. The board's furious. Long pause, audible sob. I didn't know how much you were really doing. I didn't understand. I didn't want to understand. Please, just tell me what you want. Name your number, anything. I let it marinate for 24 hours. He needed time to squirm, to reflect, to sit in that sterile corner office while Athena slowly devoured every illusion of competence he ever wrapped himself in. She was quiet about it too, graceful even. One column of data at a time, encrypted and sealed. No damage, just disappearance. When I finally called, I made sure to dial from a landline with zero emotion in my voice. No rage, no gloating. Just cold, clinical gravity. Hello, Todd. He exhaled like someone who'd been holding his breath since the fiscal quarter began. Oh, thank God, Jessica. I was an ass, a complete ass. You didn't deserve. I'm not calling to fix anything, I interrupted, calm as winter asphalt. I'm calling because you asked a question. About what I want. Silence, what I want. I continued, is for you to remember every meeting you talked over me, every suggestion you borrowed, every time you waved your hand and said, let's keep the technical stuff simple for the rest of us. I want you to remember telling me to my face that my job could be done by software. He tried to cut in. I didn't let him. You wanted software to replace me. Now you have it. Athena's final protocol, triggered by your direct contact, by the way, is encrypting the historical data archives, budget files, project timelines, billing records, everything she touched. And unless she recognizes a valid administrative override, which no longer exists since my credentials were deleted, she won't stop. Another beat of silence. A sniff. His voice tiny. You can fix this though, right? I didn't answer that. Instead, I gave him the final nail. You didn't just fire your best employee. Fired the only one who knew which wires were keeping the lights on. Athena's last job was simple. Show you exactly how much value you flushed down the drain. Then I hung up. No goodbye, no smug chuckle, just silence. Let the machine finish what it started. 3 weeks later, I was seated in a sunlit corner office with 2 monitors, an espresso machine that didn't hiss at me like a spiteful raccoon, and coworkers who, get this, actually listened when I spoke. I knew boss, a woman who read my resume and said, we're lucky you were available. No buzzwords, no ego, just competence. I wasn't just working again, I was wanted, valued. The kind of quiet professional renaissance you don't brag about on Instagram, but you toast with good bourbon and an even better night's sleep. Then one lazy Friday morning, while sipping my second latte and reviewing code that didn't make me want to throw myself into traffic, I got the ping, LinkedIn notification. Todd M. is no longer with Centrix Global Systems. No mutual connections had liked it. No polite endorsements. Just the soft digital obituary of a career tripped by its own hubris. I clicked into the company page out of morbid curiosity and found their most recent post. We are undergoing a major internal data restructuring initiative to improve operational resilience and technology alignment. Appreciate your patience during this time of transition. Translation, we set the building on fire, fired the sprinkler, and now we're drowning in melted Ethernet. Brenda confirmed everything later that evening over a margarita-fueled text storm. Todd's gone, full board dismissal. Something about gross negligence of proprietary infrastructure. They brought in a whole new leadership team. It's being gutted. Half the department jumped ship. The interns call it the Athena Purge. They think the AI became self-aware and took revenge. I'm not correcting them. There's even a rumor the stapler still shows up weekly. Unordered. I nearly choked on my drink. The image that flashed through my mind, young, wide-eyed interns whispering around glowing monitors like tech campfire stories, passing down the tale of the haunted code that wrecked an empire built on ignorance, was so rich I almost wanted to frame that. But I already had something framed. On the wall behind my desk hung a glossy printout of Athena's Q3 performance review. The dumpster fire JPEG, perfectly centered, captioned in Comic Sans, progress. It made me smile every damn time, not because I wanted revenge anymore. That part had already curled up and died inside me like a bad appendix, but because I'd done it on my terms. Quietly, sharply, elegantly, I hadn't shouted. I hadn't posted a takedown rant or rallied others to my cause. I'd simply walked away and let the truth do the detonating. I burned the bridge, then I salted the soil, and I never looked back. Athena sleeps now, somewhere on an encrypted drive, tucked into digital hibernation. But me, I'm just getting started. Appreciate you sticking around, you legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old managers spill their coffee in fear.